Good morning. Miller, you have to tell me if you hear me. How to get myself together here. Back to neighbor. Yeah. Again, we're holding Pirkei Avos. Well, it's Perek Beis, and we're going to begin Mishneh Yud Beis. We mentioned in Mishneh Yud Aleph that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and Yud Aleph had 5 Talmidim, and then Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai expressed and enumerated all their wonderful attributes of all these 5 Talmidim, and I gave a couple of reasons why that was. Then this is a little bit of an interesting Mishnah, maybe not a lot to say about it, but this is what he says. Hu haya omer. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai continues to say, Im haya kol chachmei Yisrael bekaf meiznaim. If all of the chachamim, all the rabbanim of Klal Yisrael, we would put them on one side of a scale, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Hukenes bekaf shniya, and you would just put Rabbi Eliezer ben Hukenes on the second side of the scale, all right, to weigh them. He says, is machriyas kulam. That Rabbi Eliezer ben Hukenes had so many positive attributes, so many unbelievable things that from his beginnings when he was younger all the way to when he did become who he was after becoming a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, one of his great 5 Talmidim, he was equal in Gadlus, in Torah, in Chachma, to all of Klal Yisrael's Rabbanim put together. This is what he says. Then, as we continue in the Mishnah, Abishol, he says like Omer Mishmoi. What does Omer Mishmoi? He says, Abishol says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that he said that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said this, and he said, interestingly enough, completely different. Im yiyu kol chachmei Yisrael bekaf maznaim. Same thing. If all of Chacham of Klal Yisrael were on one side of the scale, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Hukenes Afi Mohem, it would even be part of that one side of all the Chachamim. But on the other side, you had Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach, B'kaf Shniya, Machriya B'es Kulam. Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach would have been greater than all the other Talmidim and Chachamim, including Rabbi Eliezer ben Hukenes. So when you, and this was said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Now, it's obviously something what we call in the Gemara stira. He says on one time he says that Rabbi Eliezer and Hukenes was the greatest of all Chachamim of his time, and then he says Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach was the greatest of all time. So what is this? What is the first of all? Rabbi Cheskel and Bramsky asks, what is even the point of this mission? To say who was better, who was not better. What? Obviously, nothing was said in vain. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai would not say something, first of all, that would denigrate somebody else. So this is a classic machlokes, an argument in the Gemara. What is of more value? What is more important? The term used in the Gemara is Sinai and Oike Harim. Now, what is Sinai? Sinai is where the Torah was given on Har Sinai. Is it more important to know all of the Torah, backwards and forwards, and every nuance of the Torah? In other words, is quantity more important than quality? Quality is Oike Harim. Oike Harim means somebody who takes a mountain, takes it apart, literally takes apart the mountain, and then puts it back together again. When you're learning Gemara in the many of these yeshivas, we learn daf, means we learn one page a day. That's both sides of a page. That's daf yomi. In certain Gemaras, there are yeshivas that learn one daf 2 months. Amazing. Now, what could you do in one daf Gemara, one blot of Gemara, and learn it for 2 months? And on that blot Gemara, there's volumes written on that just one blot. So what does that mean? The Gemara is very intricately written. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi wrote everything very concise and in the Mishnahs, and the Gemara tries to elaborate on it, and we try to extrapolate the halacha from this. This argument of quantity versus quality means the person who would learn the Oika Harim, which it would mean he would literally take apart this mountain. He would take the Gemara and every single word he would say this. The reason why it was said with a vav, without a vav, why the Torah wrote that this word next to this word, why this letter was written next to this letter, was because of so many different things. And then they go through each and every one of the things. And there are other people that say, no, I think he wrote this letter for another reason. And then the two of them would try to get together and explain why. That's what goes on. That's why you see this argument. Maybe you see maybe a video of yeshiva people, Bachram in a Beis Medrash. It's loud, it's raucous, and it's argumentative, because that's what the Gemara is about. You know, the old adage, if you ask a Jew a question, he answers with another question. Because he learns like that in the Gemara. When the Gemara asks a question, the Gemara asks, in this question, I got another question. And in that other question, I have another question. So by the time you get to the answer, you went through so many different questions. And that is the person who has the quality of the daf. He knows the daf to the depth of as possible that he was able to reach it. On the other hand, he doesn't get to learn certain things because he never gets to it. There's only so many hours in a day. So he never really, let's say, finishes Shas. It's very unusual for people in those Gemara, in those Yeshivas to finish Shas. Usually what they do in the morning, they learn like that. And then in the afternoon, they have a Seder that's going a little bit quicker, because they would come out of Yeshiva after 5 years of Beis Medrash and having learned literally a couple of Gemaras and the main Gemaras that Yeshivas learn, and not really know, in essence, the whole Torah. So that's the machlekes of what's going on here. We said before that Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkenes was a bar sid. He was he retained everything. He chazed and he retained everything, and he knew the Torah from backwards and forwards. Everything through it, I had to know in Shas, he knew it. On the other hand, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkenes, we said his kama'ayin of his gaber. He was gushing with excitement. He heard a saying in the Gemara, and he would try to figure it out to the point that we just keep going deeper. Ma'ayin is a spring, digs deeper and deeper, and it comes and it keeps coming and it keeps coming and it keeps coming until he tries to maybe figure out what the Gemara is trying to say. And that was the style of Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach. So that's what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was saying. There are people who understand Gemaras to a certain level, and they're able to move on. They're able to move on. I in a way has that. I happen to be a person that I never get very, very deep in a Gemara. And I learn a lot of value because you have to be a certain personality. You have to have a certain style. I have a son. He'll never turn to the next page until he knows this page literally backwards and forwards. And one time I was learning with him, and he says, "You don't even understand what you're saying." And I said, "Well," I explained to him. He says, "Yeah, but what if I asked you this question?" And I said, "Okay, and then what if I ask you this question?" So he says, "How could you go further?" I said, "Listen, behind this blot, there's another blot. And if I don't go further, I'm never going to know even anything in the next blot, so I have to go further a little bit." But he doesn't understand it because his style of personality of learning was depth. So he says, you have to know your style. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkenes, he was a computer. He had a brain that retained and he understood and he quickly grasped. And therefore, he was considered, if next to all the other Rabbanim, he knew everything. And that's why he put him on a scale, he put him in. But on the other hand, when it comes to really understanding this blot, who am I going to go to really understand it? I would go to Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach. That's what this machlek is about. Not that he's saying two opposite things. It depends on who we're talking about. And this is what this Mishneh is saying. And I won't belabor this point. I'll move on to the next Mishnah because this is really basically what this is. But the only thing is this. Cheskel Abramsky was saying that what is the nafka mina? Why is the Mishnah? What's the point of this Mishnah? The point of this Mishnah is this. First of all, every person, you have to teach him the way his style is and his strength. That's first of all. So you have to build on that person's strength. But then there's another point. When you're picking a Rosh Yeshiva and a Beis Medrash, who are you going to pick? And that's like a machlokes in the Gemara. The Gemara, there was a story that they needed a Rosh Yeshiva and a Beis Medrash, and there was one person that was Oika Harim, that he understood it so deep, but he didn't have the vast knowledge of this other person of Sinai. Sinai is not all of Torah. Sinai is where the Torah was given, so they say it's an expression. And therefore, who we're going to make the Rosh Yeshiva? So the Gemara's Paskins, the halacha is you should take the person who has the vast knowledge. Because it's going to be on Yeshiva, there's going to be 300 Bachrim. And somebody's going to ask you about something that you didn't know, you're going to lose respect. No, of course, I know there's a blot in such a Gemara, and there's a blot in such a Gemara, and therefore the style of learning in the yeshiva will increase and he'll have respect for you. And of course, you have to settle into the blot and understand it well. But firstly, somebody asks a Rosh Yeshiva a question, he should know what he's talking about. If he doesn't even know, never got there, even though he knows this few blot unbelievably, but he has to be able to answer a question. That's one thing that you would be a nafkamina and a difference between the two. One other difference would be is if you have, let's say, when it comes to Klal Yisrael, and you have to come up with a certain halachas we have now in the way we're living right now. You have to understand that things are different, and you have to understand you do things differently. You do daven with the minyan, not daven with the minyan, inside, outside. These are all things. So who do you ask? So we have a halacha that Yochid v'Rabban halacha k'Rabban. If one person says one thing and 5 people say another thing, you go according to the majority. So you go according to the majority. He says like this. When it comes to klal, and you have a Rav who is head and shoulders above others, he says you can't go according to Rabbin. It's true, 5 people, but they don't even understand. They didn't get to that extent of knowledge of this Rav. It's true, more people, because they never reached his level. If they would have reached the level of this great Rav, and he has no interest in this thing, and just wants for the Klal Yisrael, for the Klal to make it better, follow the person who knows more. So even though that's what the Mishneh is saying over here. So if we go according to Sinai, go to the person who has the best knowledge, because that is the people who we have to understand are the ones that know the situation better because they have much more knowledge. And that's where I'm going to stop with this Mishneh. I'll go on to the next Mishneh. I'll start with this next Mishneh. The next Mishneh, Mishneh Yud Gimel, says like this. Amar lahem. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to these 5 Talmidim, says like this, go out, go out, and look around. Which is the proper path? Which a man should yidbak ba. Yidbak is to cling, is to attach himself to. Now, if we remember, this whole Perek began with Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. He also asked a very similar question. Ezu derech very similar type of question. He didn't say you should cling to, but he didn't say, he said which, and we answered with him, he should go to a middle of the way path. Over here, he's saying it's a little bit different. He's not asking the exact same question, which, by the way, it's not that he's asking the same question, because he was 100 years before Yehuda Nasi. This is, as I was saying earlier, we came back to Hillel after Yehuda, but the Hillel and Yehuda was 100 years apart. So then this is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was also roughly in that little time frame, a little bit after Hillel. So they asked that he was the one, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai asked this question before Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. And he says like this. Now he says a very interesting lashon. He uses a term, go out and look, which is the best way to go, a person should cling to. So why doesn't he just ask, which is the best place, best thing a person should do, the better, the proper way that a person should cling to, he should adapt himself to. And then he goes into each one. Rabbi Eliezer says, ayin toiva. And I'll just finish the Mishnah. Ayin toiva, a person should have a good eye. And we'll get into each one if we can. Rabbi Shua, these were all the same first Talmidim. It's Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanis, Rabbi Shua ben Chananya we had before. It's Chaver Toiv. He's a Chaver Toiv. You should pick a good friend. Similar to, we've had this before. Rabbi Yossi, Shachan Toiv. Pick a good neighbor. That's because he says the word yidbak ba. The lashon in the Mishnah when it began is who should you cling to, who should you cleave to. He says these are the people you should. Your good friends, or the middah, which middah should be an ayin toiva, a good neighbor. Reb Shimon says, a royas hanoilad, interesting. You should be able to foresee the outcome. You should consider, when you do something, what's the outcome going to be? So royas hanoilad means, the noilad means what's the something that is born. Born is a surprise, so to speak. You don't know if it's a boy or it's a girl. You don't, somebody see what's going to be born from what your action is going to cause. Leif Toiv, a person who has a good heart. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said these were what these five, when he asked these five Talmidim, what is the best trait for a person to have, and what is the best thing he should cleave to, he should attach himself to? He says, Roya ani as divrei Rebbe Elazar ben Arach midivreichem. I think from all these five attributes that a person has, I think Rebbe Elazar ben Arach's words are the words that I prefer, he says. Why? If we look into what he's saying, what she says, Leif type, somebody who has a good heart, every one of the previous four things, if you have a good heart, then all of the other ones fall into place as well. You'll have an ayin toiva, you'll pick a good friend, you'll have a good neighbor, you'll realize what you're doing and how to do it. And he says that's the way a person should behave, the most important way. Is Leif type a good heart. A good heart encapsulates all of the previous things. And this is what he says. So let's get back for a minute over here. So when it says go out, what is he saying? These five Rabbanim were the leaders of Klal Yisrael. They were going to be, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai knew they were going to be the future leaders of Klal Yisrael. We said before that every person has a natural trait. Every person is noited, leans towards something, he says. He wanted to hear what their trait was, he says. When you will go out and look for a rabbi, so he's not necessarily speaking to the Rabbanim that he's there. You go out, find somebody who has these traits. And if he has an ayin toiva, you know he's good. However, if he's a leif toiv, he says he's going to be the best. Pick him if you can. Find somebody who has a leif toiv. That's one of the things of tzu'uru. Another way is to look at the reverse, in a way. A Rav, he sits in a beis medrash since he's a teenager, usually. He gets married and he goes to kollel. He never really understood the street, so to speak. So you want to become a leader, you want to understand who you're going to be leading, you have to take yourself a little bit out of the beis medrash. So go out. How people are living. You can't paskin a shaila on somebody who is hungry the same way you can paskin a shaila on somebody who's not hungry. There was a story where somebody was giving an Erev Pesach drasha in a city. And he went through and he gave the shear of matzah. How much matzah is considered a kazayas? Because it's a machlekes, how much is a kazayas, what the size of the matzah, the amount of matzah you're allowed to eat. You should eat to be yoytze the mitzvah of matzah. And he went through a whole 40-minute drasha on all sides of this particular inyan of achilas matzah. And as he's, people coming asking questions, and he sees somebody a little bit not so, in a good mood. And he goes over to him and he says, what is your problem? I see you're not in a good mood. He says, Rabbi, Baruch Hashem, I heard your drasha and I'm very impressed, everything like that. He says, but between me and you, I don't even have money to buy a kazayas of matzah. He says, so I don't even know if your whole shear applies to me. And the Rashiv was taken aback. He was taken aback. And he just he gets back up to the bima where he spoke, and he gave it a clap. And he said, I want everybody to sit down. He said, I said a whole drasha 45 minutes. And with one kasha, somebody completely wiped away the drasha. Abgeschlagt, there's a lashon they use. He all my questions and all my things that I extrapolated from certain things, he says, he in one question, in one statement, he was able to wipe it all away as if it's not right. It wasn't right. He says, it's a whole different shear. There's a whole different shear. Of course, I made a mistake. The shear is not what I said on the kazayas. He says, you know what the shear is? The shear is to make sure that everybody in this city has enough money, not just for kazayas matzah, but for wine and for challah, for bread, rather, for meat and whatever it takes to make a seder for a family. He says that's the shear a person has to worry about at the seder night, so that everybody should go the same way to a seder and finish a seder with a certain satisfaction the way he's supposed to sit by a seder. So one person, as simple, he sat in Beis Medrash and he was right. The Kazayas has a certain shear, and he's supposed to elaborate on it, and he's supposed to explain how much you're supposed to have, and he went through all the halachas of all sides. But he forgot, when you go outside and you see now somebody who can't afford a Kazayas matzah, and you're talking about a little more, a little bit less, you think he cares. I have nothing to eat. My kids are starving at home. He says all those things were wiped away, and that's what we have to worry about. And this is what he's saying over here. So, see what we're doing over here. I'm going to go into this, the part. This is Parshas Pinchas. Pinchas will finish his last parsha in Balak. He goes, and Pinchas is one of the children of Levi. He's a Levi from the Shevet Levi, and he's also Aaron HaKohen's children. But when the Torah was given, not all Aaron HaKohen's children were considered Kehanim. Only Nadav, Aviv, Elazar, and Samar, those four, and then two of them passed away because whatever, something happened that they did something. Nadav, Aviv. But Pinchas saw something that was going on that was inappropriate, that was a Chil Hashem, as the story of last week's Parsha go at the end of last week's Parsha. He saw one of the leaders of Klal Yisrael desecrate and do something that was not improper, especially for a leader. And all of Klal Yisrael watched this and actually cried al Pesach HaNemoy. The Torah is witness to that, seeing somebody, a leader of Klal Yisrael, do something that was embarrassing, that was not proper. So he went and he took the law in his own hands. And he went and he had them literally. The Gemara says, it describes what happened. It's amazing. He was a man of great strength. The Gemara says he took a spear and he made sure in front of all of Klal Yisrael, you make a Chil Hashem in front of all your Klal Yisrael, you deserve Misa. And he did it in front of everybody. He did it in front of everybody. So now, first of all, everyone was taken aback. This is a Jew should kill somebody. Golda Meir was one of the prime ministers of Israel. And she said something like this. She made an amazing statement. She said, I could forgive the Arabs for killing Jews. Why? Because that's their nature. The Para Adam, the Torah was witness to the Yishmaelim are Para Adam. That's their nature. They are bloodthirsty people. However, he says, I can never forgive the Arabs for making our sons killers. That our sons had to take up arms to defend themselves and kill Arabs. Why? Because by nature, Jews are a little more passive. They don't take up arms and kill. They like to make peace. They like to study. It's not their nature. What the Arabs did to the Jews, she said, was make them into killers, not by being forced, by the way. Even they were killers because they had self-defense. But what happens is when a soldier comes back from battle and he experienced killing somebody and more than one person, his nature changes and he becomes a little more hardened. He becomes a little more hardened, and it's not already such a big deal. He's not so passive as he was. Gets more aggressive in the street. See the Israelis have a little of an aggressive nature. That's part and parcel of what she was talking about, because they constantly have to take up arms. They have to leave to what went on outside. And what happened was Pinchas went out of his comfort zone. He's a Kohen. He was a Shevet Levi. He wasn't a Kohen yet. He was a child of Aaron HaKohen. And they were Oyev Shalom v'Roidev Shalom. That was their nature. And he went against his own nature, and he did what he was supposed to do to prevent a greater Chil Hashem. So what was his reward? Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, as this week's parsha starts. His reward is that he is going to be a man of Shalom. He becomes a Kohen. He becomes a Kohen, and his generations following him will also be Kohanim. And so Hashem didn't want him to retain that nature of aggressiveness, because that's not what he is, and that's not who he is. There was a young boy. I'm going to finish with, yeah. Okay, so then I'll finish right here. Thank you very much and have a very good day. Take care.